In the 20th century, one of the real concerns was, how could we stop our world population reaching 24 billion by the end of this century? Now, in fact, we're less obsessed with size because we think that population probably will stable at around about 10 billion. And we're far more interested in the composition of that population, the density, are we all going to be living in urban areas rather than rural, where in the world the big population bulges are going to be, and that's very much linked into migration, and the really big challenge, which is this age structural change. And what that means is that, with the exception of sub-Saharan Africa, across the globe, women are having fewer children. And as a consequence, we have less young people entering our societies and economies, and we're all living longer, so the average age of most populations is increasing. And just to give you an example, at the turn of the millennium, we had already more people over 60 in Europe than under 16. And in about 25 years' time, we'll have more older people in Asia than younger people. But as this demographic change goes across different regions, so we get different kinds of demographic issues. For example, if we look at sub-Saharan Africa, where they still have large levels of childbearing, over 4 children per woman, the real issue there is whether the large numbers of very, very young children are going to dampen down the economic development of those countries. And when we move to the emerging economies, for example, Asia, the Middle East, North Africa, there the big question is this big bulge of young people, the youth bulge. So we have large numbers of people between about 15 and 24 in those populations. How are we going to find housing and jobs for them? And unemployment among young people has been very closely linked to things like civil unrest and even terrorism. And then, of course, in the advanced economies, which is mainly Europe and the North American style societies, we have the ageing of the population, which brings all sorts of issues when you have over half your population aged over 50. But it isn't just countries that are affected. Individuals are also affected because the demographic regime of your country affects things like how many children you have, whether you're an only child or have got lots and lots of siblings. And that then affects how many people there are to care for the older people in your own family. It also affects things like the gaps between the generations. And if we have long gaps between the generations, we have implications for the passing down of status and wealth and assets when you inherit from your parents or your grandparents, for example. And then, of course, extreme longevity in some societies. And that means whether you're going to have a healthy life in later years or a disabled life. And it even has impact on things like how long we work. Because if we live in a society with lots and lots of older people, as we do in Europe now, we can see why people are being encouraged to stay in the labour market for longer. So the really exciting thing about these population challenges are that it not only affects regions and countries, but also the individuals who live within them.